Good afternoon, and welcome to our professional development session for today. It is my pleasure and privilege to introduce our guest speaker for you today. Nicole is a doctoral student in the College of Education, and she's also on the staff here for the Center of eLearning, and she's going to be sharing some wisdom with us. So, thank you.
So we're going to talk about time management and e-learning. So let's get started. So before we dive into our topic, I would like to take a moment to introduce newcomers to WebEx. This is a wonderful web conferencing tool that easily integrates with Canvas. Some of the features of WebEx include real-time polling, virtual breakout rooms, quizzes, threaded Q&As, and attention monitoring tools. I like to explain in these webinars that WebEx offers several different products, all with varying measures of control. The one we are using today is the Event Center. Event Center is designed to facilitate meetings for hundreds of people. This is the highest level of control and unfortunately the least interactive of the tools. The reason we use this is because we need to make sure all attendees register. However, other products offer more freedom for participants. For example, My WebEx is appropriate for one-on-one communication, file sharing, etc. Meeting Center is good for small groups, maybe 6 to 9 people, and Training Center is great for the whole class. Professors tell me that they really like the features and their students are able to use a mobile app to join meetings. These products are free for all FAU instructors, and this afternoon I will share some resources, including how to get trained on WebEx. Today, our awesome moderator is Daniel. So he'll be facilitating. If you have any questions or comments, just raise your hand and Daniel will let me know that you have a question. So let's get right to it. So the moderating, so you can communicate via chat and Daniel will let me know. Speak freely, and this is a dialogue, so if you have any comments, please let me know. Okay, so our topic today is time management and e-learning, so let's get right to it. So time management has so many components and it's unique to each individual. Some are more productive at night, some are more productive during the day, so it just kind of depends on how you work, right? And so some people like to plan things out like me, and others like to feel that pressure of a deadline. So whatever works for you is going to be different, and that's kind of what we will talk about today. So the definition of time management by the Business Dictionary is as follows: a systematic, priority-based structuring of time allocation and distribution among competing demands. We all have competing demands, right? Whether it's school, teaching, class, family, work, there's so many different things that we have going on in our lives, and it's really important that we prioritize what we do based on our lives, right? No one can tell us, what is more important than the other based on our values and beliefs, and that's really important to consider when you're thinking about time management. So one of the most famous strategies is the Eisenhower matrix, which you can see in the PowerPoint behind the screen there in the background. So this is an easy-to-use decision-making tool that kind of helps organize tasks into various sections. So with this category, there's 4 boxes: urgent and important. These are things that you want to do immediately. They're urgent and important. The second box is important but not urgent. So these are tasks that you can schedule to do later. And the third box is urgent but not important. Tasks you will delegate to someone else. Neither urgent nor important tasks are tasks you can eliminate, or maybe save for a much later date, things that don't need to be done in the moment. So from a visual perspective, that's kind of how it looks. And so as you're developing your time management strategies, these are tools that you can use to help organize your task. Again, it's not going to tell you what to do first. Urgent and important is based on how you perceive that. And that's really important to consider. So this is the definition of time management in a broad perspective, right? And so we're going to go into some importance in time, the importance of time management in e-learning, right? So e-learning is a unique environment for time management. There's freedom, a lot of freedom in online education, right? And you have to take ownership of your time. No one is going to tell you, you have to grade these assignments during this time period, or, you have to attend this lecture at this time. It's very fluid in that way, which is a benefit of online education. But it also means that you have to be able to organize your time. So take ownership of the tasks that need to be completed and schedule them out for yourself based on your priorities. Increase personal responsibility, right? So that's your responsibility to get things done. There's no mom or teacher or someone else, telling you when to do things. So you have to take responsibility for your actions. And this is for students, right, especially in online education. The flexible structure is a benefit, but it's also important to recognize that you do have flexibility. And so this may be something where you can schedule things out, like important but maybe not urgent, depending on what's going on in the class. And then task pile up. This is something where tasks can start to pile up over time. So let's say Module 1 is due, in week 1, but then you have a few weeks before Module 2 is due. You may wait until the last minute to do Module 2, depending on how you schedule your time. And that's something to consider. Like, what else do you have going on when Module 2 is due? So things like that, whether you're a student or an instructor in online education. These are things that are important to think about when you're utilizing time management skills. So there's certain keys to time management, and these are not by me. These are research-based, and the resources and references will be at the end of the presentation, and you'll be able to look at them to see where I got my information. So these aren't keys to time management by Nicole, necessarily. So persistence. Persistence is you have to do what you say you're going to do, which is hard sometimes, especially when you have competing demands. So being persistent, using the time as you planned. We know things come up, right? The boss calls, family calls, students call, right? So it just depends on making sure that you've allocated time for urgent and important events in your time management planning. Then there's dedication. You have to do this consistently. That's what the research shows. That, you may do it for 1 week, but then if you stop, you can go back to how you were doing things before. One of the articles that I read said if you lose track of time, or you don't know where time goes, or you skip days, right? They said that this is all part of time management, where it's an indication that you may need some structure in the time management process. And then motivation, right? So you need to be able to motivate yourself to do this time management process, because if you don't reward yourself and you're not feeling that you benefit from it, you may be less likely to continue and be dedicated and persistent in your time management skills. So something that we would recommend is to make SMART goals for your time management. Be specific, have the goals be measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So time-bound goes back into that time management piece, and that's why it's so critical that we have these goals to set and to reward ourselves for staying on task and doing things that we were supposed to do within that time. So I talked a lot about definitions and keys and important things, and so I wanted to get some of your feedback on how you would prioritize these tasks. So there's an example on the screen, and it's a poll everywhere. So if you have a poll everywhere, if you have access to internet, the website is there on the screen, and I believe Daniel can put it in the comments in the chat as well. So if you go there, and let's see how you would prioritize these tasks. Again, there's no right and wrong answer. I want to stress that this is up to you and maybe how you fit it into the Eisenhower matrix. So take a minute and think about that, and I'll go over how I would prioritize my task. So in this poll everywhere is the drag and drop of prioritizing the task, what you would do first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. So depending on the task, so how would you systematically prioritize the following tasks, given that today is May 7th, 2018, right? So you can see that there are a couple dates in the task list in the poll. So the first one that's on the screen is review and respond to discussion prompts for this week, respond to a student's email about taking another course with you in the fall 2018, respond to a student's email about a curve for the class, you know, students love that, grade an essay assignment that was due May 2nd, so last week, respond to your supervisor regarding final grades for spring 2018, and discuss a research project with a colleague. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. Huh? Oh, sure. Did you want me to? Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi everybody. I'm sorry, I'm in the poll, but I'm not seeing the questions in the link that we got sent. I don't know if anybody else is having the same.
Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a bit and see if I can access this in the same way. Oh, okay. You should see it now. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So those of you who are responding, please try again. Sorry about that.
Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. So we just drag it to the order?
Yes. So
okay.
You drag it depending on what you think, how you order them. So the top one would be first, second, third, and so forth. So I'm going to do it with you. Let's see. Something to keep in mind as you do this prioritization task is how long each task will take. So keep that in mind. Okay, so this is my order, and I'll explain a little bit why I put them in this order in a moment. All right, so you can see that these are changing with the people who are participating. So we have someone who put grade and essay assignment, I think that was me, where the reason for this is we like to give students feedback as soon as possible. So if this was due, you know, a week ago, I want to get them that feedback as possible, and because it's the end of the semester, right? So giving them that validation and feedback for the course, I think is important. Your supervisor is also very important, and it may not take a long time for you to respond to your supervisor's emails depending on the situation. So that is definitely something to think about. Review and respond to discussion prompts for this week. We're going to look at a time-saving tool that can help with that task and make it go hopefully a little faster and manage that time. Respond to a student's email about a curve in the class. This may be something that we can use another Canvas tool to save some time because you may have multiple of these emails depending on the students in your class. Discussing a research project with a colleague. This one is dependent on where you are, right? If the deadline is tomorrow, this may shoot up to number 1, but if you got some time and you need to do your lit review first, you may put this towards the bottom and schedule it for a later date. Respond to a student's email about taking another course with you in the fall. We got lots of time until the fall, but you may also want to use a Canvas tool, which we'll talk about, to help with this and maybe address additional students' concerns who have the same question. And talk about some tips and tricks within the LMS. So everyone may be using a different LMS, but generally these are things like announcements, discussion forums, and synchronous help sessions that hopefully all LMSs have. So the first one is a tip and trick is to skip the individual email. And this may not work all the time because there is some sensitive student information that cannot be shared, but like for our poll. So if there's a question about a curve for the class, this is something that probably all students are wondering if there's going to be, you know, for the whole class or for, you know, that assignment that was due May 2nd. This is something that you may be able to address with an announcement saying, no, there is no curve, your grades will be out soon, or yes, there will be a 1% curve, something like that. Just so there's a blanket response and it'll cut down on the amount of emails you may have to respond to. Same thing with the student who has a question about the fall 2018. If you know you're teaching in the fall, you may want to advertise that you're teaching this course, and it can also allow less emails to your personal email account if you use the announcement. Again, there are certain cases where you do need to send an individual email, but when it applies to the whole class, go ahead and skip that individual email and use the announcement. A discussion forum. So one of the tasks was to grade the discussion prompts, review and respond to discussion prompts for this week. A tip and trick to help manage your time in e-learning is to have the discussion boards be peer reviewed, or require students to respond to at least 2 colleagues in that discussion forum. What this will do is that it will give the students time to reflect and respond to other students, which hopefully has a different another level of learning as they create their responses and reflect on what other students have written and what their responses would be to it. The peer review process in Canvas is very easy and very simple, and allows you to cut down some of your response time that you would have to go through each one. Another trick to that one is to look for keywords. So if there's a common theme in the discussion forum, you'll start to see keywords come up. This is something you can also address in an announcement if there's something you need to address in the discussion instead of going through each discussion and making the same comment over and over. If that has to happen and you need to address each student's concern in the discussion prompt, go ahead and save that response that you made in a Word doc. What this will do is next time you teach the course, next semester, whenever, you'll have that saved response. You won't have to retype it, and you can copy and paste it into the discussion forum and address that concern. Synchronous help sessions. So let's say the students have a big concern in the class, and they're just maybe not grasping a concept, or you're getting a lot of questions in the FAQ section, things like that. You're getting a lot of emails about things in the course. This is a great time to do a synchronous help session. And what this can be is this can be an interactive live session where you take questions and answer questions in a welcoming environment that they're kind of used to. And they can see you, they know you're there to help, and that might be a great way to answer a lot of questions in a short amount of time. And you can record this, post it in the course. If anyone has missed it, they can watch it later and get some of their questions answered. So those are 3 tips and tricks within an LMS to help manage your time. All right, so tips and tricks for grading, right? Grading takes a long time, and is the majority of what online professors do in addition to providing that feedback and doing the content presentation. So tips and tricks is to have them peer review each other's work. But there's certain things that you have to keep in mind when students are peer reviewing other students' work. There is an option to make it anonymous within Canvas, but we have to make sure that we provide the students who are grading with a specific rubric. We want to make sure that the personal feelings are taken out of it, and it's all about the student's work and the quality of that work. So providing a very straightforward rubric will help with this process, and it could cut down on some of the grading that you have to do and allows you to manage your time a little bit better. So we don't just give the students work because we don't have the time. There's got to be reasons for it, right? So the NACE competencies are student competencies, that career readiness skills that employers are looking for. Oral and written communication is one of those competencies. A way to have students practice this is through peer review. If they're talking to other students, providing written feedback, this may be a great way to exercise that skill and prepare them for the workforce. The next one is group submissions. Now, something that we do in our e-certification course, and if you're interested in that, write in the comments and Daniel can let us know. He can send you the link to the e-certification workshop, is group submissions. So with this, it's important to have a group charter. And this is something that Dr. Summers has, when she was facilitating the e-certification when I went through it, is very, very important. Is to make sure that responsibilities are set out at the beginning of the group. So that way one person doesn't do all the work, and there's kind of like a contract between the group members on what to do work when to do work and what time is good for them, so there's no confusion on, oh, well, this team member couldn't meet or things like that. So that kind of eliminates some of the grading. So let's say you have 100 students in your class, and you can put them into maybe five people in a group. That's kind of like the max we want to put in a group. You just cut down your grading, right? And you only have like half of that to grade. So that's one of the things you can use to help manage your time. SpeedGrader, which is like a tool in Canvas that is amazing. It makes things really, really easy to give feedback. And this will allow you to implement the rubric right into the grading scheme so students can see where they placed on the rubric and have that detailed instructions that they can follow. The rubrics are really important in the SpeedGrader because it allows you to grade across the class similarly. So you're not, doing one for one student, one for another. The rubric allows you to structure that nicely and be a consistent grading across. Save and reuse. This is probably the best and easiest tip I have for grading is to keep all of your feedback you give, because when you teach a course another time, you're probably going to have the same questions, the same feedback, because a lot of the time students will make the same mistakes depending on the topic and content of your course. And that's why it's really important to have a common question sheet, a common feedback sheet, and if you do have a TA, they can also use this to help provide the feedback and answer questions for students, which can cut down on time. So these are all to help you manage time, maybe save you a little bit of time when you're teaching in an online course. Example student work. So if a student produced a phenomenal piece of work that it's exactly what you were looking for in the assignment, obviously get their permission first to use it in the class as an exemplar, and then have students look at this. And make sure that, I know sometimes professors are concerned with plagiarism and things like this, but you'll have the example there. So if they do try to copy it, then we'll know because we provided them with the example in the course. So that's something that may help students focus and help your grading. If they know what you want, they may be able to follow the instructions better, and then it'll help and save time with that feedback component. So I'm going to stop there for a second and ask the audience if you have any questions or if you have your own tips and tricks you would like to share with us. Anything you've learned from teaching online.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Hey, yeah, I just love this. Is really great reminder. Excellent stuff, and just staying organized and keeping track of everything. And gosh, the priorities. I heard what you said. I was like, oh, she's got a really good point there. I should do this last. I hadn't even thought about the group emails. I'm so used to emailing one person at a time. It just really makes a lot of sense. So thanks. Yeah, really, really great.
Awesome. Thank you. Did anyone else have any other way they would prioritize tasks? Maybe another tool they use to prioritize their tasks? I know the Outlook calendar is very, very helpful. It gives me those 15-minute reminder emails, and that's a way you can be persistent in your time management skills if you have that constant reminder in your email, or it's connected to your phone and you get that notification from Outlook saying you have to do this in 15 minutes, and then it'll remind you, and that can also help you stay on task. So what would you tell a first semester online student in regards to time management? So you're teaching this online class, maybe you have 100 students in your class. What is something that you want to tell them? Something that I would probably tell a first semester online student is to have a calendar, make an agenda, because that task pileup that we talked about earlier is a real thing. And that's something that a lot of potentially online students, they have other things going on, and if they wait to that last minute to submit an assignment or maybe a group assignment, it's not always ideal. So is there something that you would tell a first semester online student?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. That learning this, that like you said, you never get perfect at it. So if you're a perfectionist, give yourself a little bit of a break. But also calendaring out. I'm really learning how to take a look at list out the things that need to get done and try to estimate how much time do I need to spend on each one, and then put it in my calendar so that there's that chunk of time that I'm planning to spend on that. And if the week looks like it's too full of stuff, then something needs to give. I have to be able to say, okay, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to say no to that dinner, or say no to that, thing that I was going to volunteer to do, or because you really don't. And I guess when you're 20, it's okay to skip sleeping. I remember being able to do that. But that's not sustainable. You got to be able to, eat, go grocery shopping. When am I going to do my laundry? All of those things have to get put in.
And there's tons and tons of resources out there that kind of give you tips and tricks for this online time management, because it is something that could be difficult to navigate. So in the resource that I'll provide at the end of this presentation are some quick tips, and there's tons of resources out here. This one's from Faculty Focus, and it just has really good skills and tricks that you can use. So getting into a schedule, making sure that you're dedicated, persistent, being ultra organized, making sure that you have things planned out. I know a lot of professors are really good at planning things out. And here at the Center for eLearning, when we do e-design, we have the professors plan out kind of what they're going to teach to make sure that we ensure that there's quality in that online course. Have a backup time stash. This is to make sure, like we talked about, setting that time for those urgent and important things that just come up. Things come up, things happen. And having that stash time is important. And this is something that I think happens a lot of time, is that you'll do back-to-back meetings, right? Who doesn't have back-to-back meetings? But if it's across campus, we need to schedule travel time, or if it's on a different campus, that's even more. So things like that are often overlooked when you don't realize that you're in the Boca campus and the meeting's in Davie, or you're across the campus within Boca even, and making sure that you have that time scheduled out, because then things start falling, right? You'll get to the meeting 15 minutes late, you don't know what they said, and then you try to get to your next meeting and now you're 30 minutes behind your schedule. So things like that where they kind of just get into the air and kind of skip your mind. But these are things that when you have good time management skills, they kind of just come to you. So plan your assignments with your schedule in mind. Let's say you're traveling and you're going to be out for a week. Maybe have that peer review assignment that week so that students are getting the feedback, but it doesn't have to, and it's immediate for them. And it kind of allows you to have your time, right, for that vacation or whatever you have going on in your life. Don't let time control you, right? That's always a good one. Focus on what has to be done, like that Eisenhower matrix we talked about. Develop healthy time tricks. If you do have a TA, that'd be awesome. But there's another way to think about a TA is your time aid. Let the internet help you out with that. There's a ton of tools and things that are out there. So that was just one of the resources that I'll show you at the end of the presentation from Faculty Focus that has a couple of tips and tricks. Any other comments on what you would tell a first semester online student, or maybe any questions I didn't answer about time management and learning that we can potentially address in another session?
One of the things that I had heard too was about your gathering points. How many piles do you have? And they recommended making just one in basket with all of your stuff, and then you know, which time of day do you check your email, and letting go of some of that urgency of, oh, I have to answer this text message right now. Really, you don't, you know. Let's turn it off, and just when it's time to focus on studying, especially studying, because that really takes your concentrated attention, go to a quiet place. You know, physical environment is such an important part of that. And like you were saying with meetings, I'm learning that a 1-hour virtual meeting doesn't take 1 hour, it takes 2 hours, because I need a half an hour to set it up ahead of time, and then I need a half an hour to follow up and write my notes afterwards, you know. So having that, building in that margin, like you're saying, of, you know, I want to say hello to my friend after class. I don't want to rush off right away. It's going to take time to get out of the parking lot, all of that.
Absolutely. Traffic, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you know, parking is something that, you know, a lot of students are like, you know, I can't find parking, or you know, they're late because of it, or, but things happen, you know, maybe you missed the train, maybe you missed the bus. So there are going to be days where things just come up, and you have to be okay with that and persist on. I know we got like 10 more minutes. Does anyone have any other questions before I talk about kind of what's next, maybe go through one more resource? All right. So if there are no other questions, please feel free to post in the chat if you don't want to let me know now, and we can try to get that answer to you in the meantime. So there are a lot of resources, like I said, out there. The next one we're going to go through is one from the e-learning industry. So we did one kind of where it's faculty focused. This one is from the e-learning industry. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so this one, there's just 5 simple tips that you can use to manage an online classroom. Is developing a routine. So sometimes, like we mentioned, in online learning, the routine kind of goes out the window, and we have this flexible structure that we need to take responsibility for. And so developing your own routine that fits within your 4 boxes is really important. Making lists. I love a to-do list. I am a list queen. I have lists for everything, and that really helps me because I can cross things off or highlight things that I need to do, even in an online environment. I usually use something like Google Docs or Google Sheets, and I cross things out and highlight even in a virtual environment. Hold office hours, like those synchronous web sessions like we talked about, to get all questions maybe within an hour to save you some time. That's really, really important. Determine the order of importance, like I said, with that matrix, and then save and reuse. So these are I kind of took from these different resources to develop the presentation today. As you can see as we go through them, that they just make sense, right? This may not be anything like drastically new, but it does remind you that this is important. And time management is really key. It helps reduce stress, keep you relaxed, keep you going, especially when you get to that task pile-up phase. And there is a lot to do, especially towards the end of the semester like we're getting to now. All right. So I'm going to share the slide with the resources on it, and these just have links, and we can also share it out at the end of the presentation. Just tips, tricks, rubrics, finding balance, right? We don't want our scales to tip with the things that we have in our lives. These are some of the references for today, just articles that I took from about time management.
So, Nicole,
yes.
I was just thinking of a different new thing, too, because if you have ADD, which I absolutely do, you know, time management is something that you just really are always striving for. And I heard a great talk recently that said multitasking is a myth. he said, really, there's no such thing as multitasking. He called it switch tasking. Mm-hmm. So if I'm in this webinar with you and I turn to do something on a different website, I'm not actually doing both at the same time. I really am doing one or the other, or half of both. And when it comes to learning, I really need to just turn off the other stimulus and focus on what I need to learn. Because if you try to go back and forth between things, it's a huge time sucker. It just really steals away a lot of time. And they've tested it out where try it this way and then try it the other way and see which one actually takes more time. And then the other piece is knowing, making sure to take care of your body. If I'm tired, I can just turn off learning, because if I'm hungry or tired, I'm not going to learn at my best. I might as well go eat something,
Sure. Absolutely. One of the resources actually talk about, thank you for bringing that up. One of the resources actually talked about exercise and how that can help with your time management, because if you feel good, you're more likely to be persistent and dedicated to your schedule and calendar, which is important. It's important to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and building in your friend time too. Building in your alone time where I need to just space out maybe, or play my video games, or build in my friend time, which builds me back up. Now, you talked about rewards. What kind of a reward would you give yourself for doing a good job on your time management?
That's a good question. So I would build in the rewards to my time management calendar, right? So if I stick to, my schedule that week, the next week I'll give myself maybe an extra hour to, spend with family and friends or something like that, in order to reward myself. So making it very specific, measurable. So if I stick to my calendar and my time for that 1 week and I meet all of the meetings and I get everything I need done, I'll reward myself with something, maybe a chocolate bar, I don't know, but, or, scheduling it out as a reward.
That does make sense, because then you actually have more time. Like, wow,
right.
All of a sudden I have an extra hour here. What do I want to do with that?
Exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely. Any other questions about time management in e-learning, anything that I maybe skipped over today that I could address in another session or via email? I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Nicole. This has been great. We truly appreciate your comments and your feedback. I have to acknowledge that I kind of am a master at the task pile-up piece, and tend to be somewhat deadline-driven. So I've been making notes like crazy so that I can try and put some things into action. And so we truly appreciate your willingness to step in and share this information with us today. Thank you, and if you spent the time to join us today, we thank you tremendously for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Judy. Yes, thank you. So we do have some webinars coming up on May 14th, Crafting Your Bestseller Syllabus. So you can join us virtually or at one of our campuses. We would be happy to have you. And thank you for your time. I know we still got a couple more minutes, so feel free to post in the chat, ask any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. Time management is definitely something that we have to work at. Some more than others, but it's something that, I struggle with it. I usually just like to get things done. That's my personality. So a lot of the times I'll create my own deadlines for things, and I'll need to get it done. I'll make it urgent maybe when it's not so urgent. And that's something that, to go the opposite way, that you have to, like Kathy was saying, release some of that urgency and making sure that there's time for everything. Again, there's no right and wrong answer with time management. I want to stress that, the importance of that, where what's in your box for that task is up to you. And really, unless you have to do something and it's mandated by, someone else, but generally the way you schedule tasks depends on your schedule, like with that colleague research assignment. It kind of depends on the deadline and outside forces. So keeping these things in mind as we end the session today. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Center for eLearning. We'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.